Let's paint a scenario. You're me, terminally online, always on his phone, way too addicted to the community tab feature on YouTube. Mostly sees it as a way to interact with other people. Of course, it's not going to be really relatable to most people, but what I'm trying to say is that I do not know how to start this video off. But for those who somehow find this all relatable, I'm of course about to be mentioning a person you've probably seen more on your community tabs page more than you've actually seen their videos. And that name is Charles Peralo. Now, I don't know whether it's necessary to give an overview as to who this guy is, because honestly, do people really care about it? Because if you don't actually care about it, fuck you, I'm actually make you gonna care about it. Charles Peralo started his YouTube channel on the 6th of March 2010. However, it wouldn't be until 2016 when he would upload his first video, an interview with Ambassador Alan Keyes. Most of his early content would be focused on political interviews with political figures. I don't know who these people are, but all I know is that they're political, they're famous, and they were interviewed by Charles Peralo. But on August 24th, 2021, Charles Peralo would do something that would eventually change his whole life forever. On this day, Charles made a video discussing how Margot Robbie wanted to make Harley Quinn more bisexual. While the views certainly pale in comparison to his other shorts, that was only the start of a massive ball that would slowly roll down the hill to future success. And soon enough it did, because on November 29th, 2021, Charles Peralo would upload his second short entitled Mr. Beast Beats Netflix. This would go on to accumulate almost 300,000 views as of the time of this recording, a certain step up from 4,000 views. And then it would jump again to 5.4 million views when Charles made his third one, talking about how James Franco was disposed over Amber Heard. And the rest you can pretty much fill in the blanks, being known as the guy who would report on current celebrity news and also condense it down into a short and a minute. He also started to branch out into other different territories on YouTube, such as community posts and longer videos. The community posts one in particular is basically where all his fans kind of came from. Whilst there were some that came from the shorts and maybe even the longer videos, most of them came from the community posts. Most of the community posts he makes are either questions or decisions that could be considered controversial to some. However, despite his massive popularity with both the community posts and shorts, his reputation nowadays seems to have gone a little iffy, to say the least. While I wouldn't say that he was well respected, I'd say most people considered him normal. But the thing is, with Charles Peralo's newfound success, he's started to do some decisions that would sort of rub people the wrong way and also lead to his reputation sort of decreasing with some people. While there are many different ways you can hate Charles Peralo for, there is one in particular that I wanted to cover in this video and is literally the main reason I made the video in the first place. This in question, charity. But specifically for this video, how he's responded to all these charity allegations. This is Charles Peralo and the charity Conundrum. Let's get into it. And of course, I'm going to say this again, I'm going to say this 100 times or maybe 1,000. Please do not go on to this guy's channel and spam excessive hate comments. This video is simply not meant to be a hate piece. It's just more as like a sort of starting point for discussion as to whether he's actually faking it or not. This is more so like not meant to be a hate piece, as I said, just, you know, what I just said. I really don't know what to say, but all I just have to say is, please don't hate it and enjoy the damn video. So before we get into the whole nitty-gritty of the video, I think it's fair I give some bit of context as to what is going on and what influenced me to make this video in the first place. This is what a typical charity post from Charles Peralo looks like. So as you can see on screen right now, if one of them gets to around 10 votes, he'll donate to that specific charity. And if you subscribe, he'll donate to all. The charities in question that are in the community post are No Kids Hungry, St. Jude's, and Prevent Child Abuse America. Now on the surface level, it doesn't seem all too malicious. It's just he's donated to charity to kids who can't afford to help themselves. What's so bad about that? Well, the malicious part comes in the form of receipts, specifically evidence to show that he's actually donated to charity instead of pocketed the money. Well, I can't show you screenshot evidence because YouTube does not allow me to view community posts from more than a month. The thing is, when Charles started these charity posts, he did say that after it was all said and done, that he would post the receipts to show that he actually donated to the community and therefore kept his word. But the thing was, he didn't keep to his promise. And when he eventually posted them, many people thought that it was photoshopped and fake because there was a spelling mistake which basically hindered its credibility. And some people thought that it was done so as an act of desperation instead of an act of generosity. And while it doesn't sound that important to you considering I really can't find any screenshot evidence of it, it definitely damaged Charles Peralo's reputation for some people. While he's still well respected in some areas, in others, most people think that he's a scummy person. No longer was he considered a down-to-earth friendly person as some may have believed him to be. And this is where I somewhat come into place. After my Ocean Lemon video, I felt about talking about other YouTubers because I just had so much fun talking about some YouTubers that I had some sort of problem with. And one YouTuber I was particularly fawn over, Charles Peralo, specifically the whole charity debacle. And as the hate grew and the comments piled up, it was time for me to do some sort of investigation work as to figure out if he's actually lying about the charity donations or he's being truthful. I first started investigating the guy by looking him up online and checking any websites that had him in it to see what was his backstory beforehand. But as I started to search more and more and the more messy it got to me, it felt like it wasn't sufficient enough to have a convincing argument against him. So as I was brainstorming, I came up with a genius idea. An interview. Considering that Charles has some experience with interviewing, I thought that it would be sort of a twist to, instead of doing a video talking about it, I'd instead have him on it and let him explain the side of the story. But the thing was, I was not experienced with interviewing. I didn't really consider what day we were going to do it with, what app we were going to use it, how long it would go on for. Basic necessities to start a good interview, none of that I had. But despite all of that, I persevered with my actions, and this is where we get to the nitty-gritty of the whole video. The first thing I did was send an email to Charles Peralo. For context as to how I found it, it was on his YouTube channel, so it was pretty easy. The email I sent was pretty self-standard. Just a question about wanting to be in the interview, what's it going to be about, my channel on where it's going to be uploaded, if you want to join or not, pretty basic stuff in my opinion. However, he declined. And it was for two reasons that I think should definitely show as an example of how not to approach someone for an interview. The ones in particular were about charity and also me showing my channel, which didn't really show any interviews whatsoever. And also another thing was, what were we going to say in the interview? Just say that he did not fake the charity money and that's it? Nothing else? While I had somewhat of a structure, it ultimately felt like I should not persevere into getting him into the interview because even if I did have the structure, he's still going to say no because I'm not that experienced as an interviewer, not myself. And also this quote by him. I mean, if it was for me, I might as well just show it. However, while I did say to him that it's fine that he does not want to partake in it, there was another side to me that felt I should ask a bit of questions before I wrap up. As even though he basically declined to be in an interview, I might as well just ask him some questions to get some more context because that was really what I needed. More context as to the whole charity thing. The first question I asked was where does he post the receipts? So seeing as he did not post the receipts on his community tab, that led me to assume he was posting it in another place I did not intend to look for. I asked him that question on the condition that he would probably tell me where it was actually, or that he was actually posting it and I just was not looking hard enough. The second question I asked him was relating to a charity post that was up for a few hours but suddenly deleted without any explanation. I brought it up because not only was it a bit suspicious, but it was also because I thought I was the reason behind its deletion. These are the only things I have remaining of the deleted charity post, so I'll try to briefly condense it down. To give a long story short, I got involved in a thread which was about him not posting the receipts. I got involved in a thread which was basically about tracking down the first time he posted the receipts and also the one with the spelling mistake, which is something I mentioned earlier in the video. And while this was ongoing, the post just got deleted, and there was no explanation as to why it was deleted. So seeing as he is practically the reason it was deleted, I thought it'd be fair to just give him his side of the story as to why it was deleted. And the last bit was basically a criticism that I had with him that I felt should be addressed. This being how overly defensive he gets when someone calls him out. Now, I'm not saying that all the hate for Charles is justified. Sometimes it could just be immature at best and sometimes flat out disgusting at worst. But it's another thing when Charles doesn't really do a good job at responding to them. Most of his responses, from what I gathered, is either bragging about his achievements or just saying, well, I've already donated it, so it doesn't matter to you. Or in some instances, he calls out other people who have no relation to him whatsoever, or just tries to make himself look bad just so people can sympathize with him. I'd say one of the worst instances of him not responding to actual criticism is this picture right here. You can see that the top comment is asking him what happened to the most recent charity poll, and then you see another one saying that he probably pocketed the money. As you can see clearly, Charles responds to the second person, but notice how there's no screenshots of him responding to the first person. And the reason is because he never responded. And even then, when he responded to the second person, he went with, oh, I donated it. How could you not understand that? This potentially shows that there's something shady behind him that he does not want you to know about. And he's only responding to the second one because he knows if he's going to respond to the first one, then he's going to get hounded more than if he were to respond to the second one, so he just opted for the easy way out. Now, I could be going crazy about it, or maybe I'm even lying to you unintentionally, but that's just my take to it. I'm not trying to be like a critic here, I'm just observing it more than anything. So with all that said, seeing as he was responding to an email instead of a comment, how do you think he went with responding? Well, if you said it was a mixed bag, then you'd be definitely correct. There's no right or wrong, it's just a mixed bag. But I will tell you beforehand that there are a lot more negatives than positives, so don't get your high hopes up. The positive I want to first mention is that he gave a pretty good reasoning as to why he deleted the charity post. To briefly sum it up, it didn't do well. It only had around 3,000 votes, which means only $3 was about to be donated. And while it is a pretty good response considering if he continued with it more, it wouldn't really improve much and there was no reason as to keep it going, I do think there is somewhat of a negative here. The negative here is that I wish he made an update as to why it was taken down instead of going radio silent and just continuing on like nothing ever happened. I mean, when I first saw that was deleted, I thought I was the reason behind it being deleted. Not because it was actually failing, because I didn't really check the votes. I actually thought I was the one who caused it to get deleted. But sadly, that's the only positive I have with this response, because there is a lot to uncover. The first negative I want to get into is the response he gave to the first question I had with him. Which, as you can see, with the aforementioned excuses, this is literally the same excuse he uses, that he just posts it on his community page. But the thing is that I can only see one. I can't go back to the other one, so I can't really say for sure, has he actually posted the receipts or he has not. And also a side note here, when I tried to tell him to post the rest because I needed to see more evidence, he never did so. So yeah. And the final part he talks about is saying how he is deflective. And this is where things went very south. To get my criticism out of the way, this not only shows how narcissistic he is, but also how airheaded he really is when it comes to taking criticism. First off, it never feels like he's actually thinking about his actions, but instead trying to pin the blame all on me because I asked them in the first place. An example of what I consider his narcissistic attitude is in the first line. While I can't confirm this as a fact, there's like this sort of I'm better than you aura around it, considering that he's referring to other YouTubers, which may means he's talking about popular YouTubers, thinking they're all guilty while he's a good Samaritan that can do no wrong. Another example of narcissistic behavior is at the end when he's telling me about going to other YouTubers about this whole thing. You can see he uses stuff like minor criticism, which basically says this whole thing is not as bad as it seems. And also the final one where it says, say you only have 300 subscribers, which that was what pissed me off to the core, because he was basically trying to downplay me by saying, you don't have as much subscribers as I do, so basically you're in the wrong. And another thing I could get out of the way is that he basically uses trolls as the scapegoat for all of this, where he says, the trolls want to undermine me. They've seen the donations, but they don't want to believe it. This whole thing not only shows how really good he is at taking criticism, but also how he views other people potentially. Like, if you're not in his status that he wants to believe, then ultimately your argument is invalid and you should feel bad about actually calling him out in the first place. And so with that, it was time for me to call out his BS and tell him how much of an awful person he was at responding to this. And potentially, if you can tell from the message, I was literally pissed off. I mean, I literally ended with a message saying, go fuck yourself. I was more pissed than anything because of how he actually went with responding. And the worst part was that it only just got worse from there. So seeing my response against him, he clapped back with another one, which I can only describe as literally being worse than the first one. The first thing he said was that he was not going to show the receipts anymore, which to me that's literally self-sabotage, because the receipts is literally the reason I was making the video in the first place and why everyone was criticizing for the charity things. Now you could say that, well, he just posted it one time, so that should give an indication that he's always doing it all the other times. But the thing is that it makes it hard for us to tell if he's actually being truthful or not. I mean, everyone hates him for this whole thing because of him not showing the receipts. So if he doesn't show the receipts going forward, that's going to have people a lot more suspicious of him if you really think about it. Another thing is that in the second question, he says it's absolutely insane to consider updating your audiences as to why the charity poll was deleted. Here's the thing, Charles. Still no one knows why it was deleted. Only I know why it was deleted, and you know as well. So maybe you should use that information to tell other people instead of relying on me to tell the others. And the third one, I don't even have words for it. But what I can mention is his usage of him considering him to be down to earth. Because in my opinion, I think he's been the total opposite of what I consider to be down to earth. He does not think about his own actions and instead blames it all on trolls. He used passive-aggressive language to shut down all my arguments against him. Pretty much insulted me straight to my face. Yeah, those all sound down to earth. And if you could probably tell, I had had enough. Basically criticizing for his actions, but also saying how very immature he is. Keep in mind, this guy is literally nearing his 30s and I'm not even of legal age. It shouldn't be that the nearing 30s guy should act more immaturely than the not even of legal age guy. I think it should be the other way around. Considering this guy has more experience in the real world than I ever will have, it should be that he should be the one responding maturely and not just basically trying to cover up the fact that he's an insecure man. But I would say, before continuing, I do think I went a little bit hard on him on the final message. While you could say it was somewhat justifiable considering the fact is that this guy responded very terribly, it shouldn't have given me the right to basically yell at him, call him a fucking idiot, to pray on his downfall, just all mean stuff that really only does more harm, so I take full accountability for that, and you can use that against me anytime you want. But even with that, I'm still mad at Charles for responding the way he did. I wish if he responded maturely, then none of this would have happened. And so that brought us to the whole conclusion of my experience with Charles Peralo trying to dig down into the charity conundrum, as I called it. But, my young friends, we're not technically finished with this video. So before I briefly wrap up this video, I want to spend some time on a section that, while it doesn't link to the main video, it does link to charity and Charles Peralo, so I just felt about including it. And those are fan comments. So with a sizable number as 900,000 subscribers, obviously he's gonna have a lot of fans. Generally speaking about fans, they are fine I guess, but they are a pretty mixed bag in terms of sanity. On one hand they're chill, other hand they're diehard, and others just a mix of both. But when it comes to Charles Peralo's charity posts and people starting to call out all those BS, that's when all the diehard fans start to come in drones. Specifically with the intent of protecting their, well, goddess is a stretch. And I think all of you will be in absolute shock when you realize that these fans have no argument whatsoever. To realistically sum it up, they have one argument and one argument only. That being, whenever someone calls out Charles Peralo on the charity thing, they just go, "Oh well, why aren't you donating to charity? You shouldn't speak of that if you don't donate to charity." Basically, if you don't donate to charity, you have no right to criticize Charles Peralo because you're not doing the same. And when I mean they use this argument all the time, I mean they constantly use this argument all the time. If I actually found an argument where it's actually besides the charity one, I think it would be like seeing a blue moon for once. But in all honesty, my response to them is, who fucking cares if I don't donate to charity? Well, yes, most of his detractors don't donate to charity. I mean, I don't even donate to charity as well, so I technically have no right to speak about how he donates to charity. But even if I did donate to charity, what difference does it make? Even if I did tell you that I donate to charity, you'd still ignore that information and still try to argue with me. And plus, I hate the way those fans treat it as something like that's a necessity to do to be a good person. Like, donating to charity can be a commendable thing, I understand that. But the thing is that that's not something you want to force on someone. That's like their own choice if they want to donate to charity. It doesn't matter the person if they're good or bad. If they want to donate to charity, they can donate to charity. If they don't want to, they don't have to. So I don't see how you could come up with an argument like that and think you're absolutely gonna demolish the other person. No, buddy, you're actually making a fool out of yourself. I'd hate to say this, but not even Charles would stoop to a level this low. And we're talking about the main subject of this video. So my brief advice for Charles Peralo fans whenever someone criticizes him for some charity BS, find another argument that is not related to charity and not turning the tables, because let me tell you, it'll benefit you a lot. Maybe. Now that we've reached the end of the video, here's the part where I now share my final thoughts on Charles Peralo and his charity conundrum, as I call it. My final thoughts? It's certainly one of the most strangest things I've ever come across. Like, I've always been anticipating a video, but I never thought the outcome would be this, actually. But when I first contextualized the video, it was mainly about a chill interview of him explaining his side of the story. But then it just dove into more like seeing who he truly is as a person, potentially. Seeing how insecure he is, how immature he is, how great he is at responding to criticism. So my final words to Charles: this is the consequences of your own actions, mate. This could have all been avoided if you just responded maturely, but you decided how you wanted to act, and this video is a reminder of how not to be an arsehole. So my only other option for Charles is to either make a response to this, or just so be it. While I'm not inherently saying that your whole charity thing is a massive scam, I am also very suspicious about it considering the way you responded to me. But if you are actually faking it, then you are such a scummy person for literally robbing people's goodwill with you, using charity to your advantage just to farm engagement than to actually donate it to a good cause. If that is all true, then Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ. But maybe he is being truthful about it. You know, we just can't jump to conclusions, to be honest. Maybe he didn't know how to respond to my questions, that's the thing. But only time will tell if Charles puts out a proper response to me about the whole charity thing, cleaning up the air, and potentially making amends to some of his detractors. So, with all that out of the way, thanks for watching, and goodbye.